A few things before I start. I will be quick because I really want to finish the demo today. It's just a thing that I do. Um, I early on, I wasn't very successful at using sanded papers or all the other things that were available for pastelists. And I had this book that says how to paint in pastels. And I saw this one particular painting that was very graphic, and it was obviously on a dark ground. And about that same time, I was in the the Spanish National Museum. I can't remember the name of it, but I was looking at some of the old masters and reading the catalog as I was going along, and they all started with dark surfaces. And so from then on, since not very many people, excuse me, not very many people make dark surface pastel papers, I started making my own. And a quick overview of how my ground works is it's 1/3 black or deep blue or some deep colored gesso. It's 1/3 pumice and 1/3 binder, which is usually matte acrylic or matte acrylic varnish. And I thin it down to the consistency of milk, and then I put it on either paper or masonite that's really roughly sanded, and I put at least 3 or 4 thin coats on it, so that when I start painting, it feels very papery. And when I'm coating paper, like illustration board, I don't usually put any kind of acrylic binder in. It's just gesso and pumice thinned down to water, because the paper makes everything really soft. And if anybody wants to get into the gory details about how I make my surface, I'll be available for a while after the demo. And I have some samples here if anybody wants to feel the surface that I use. You can come up and get these. And I have some business cards too, and they have some free pen and inks on the back. Having said all that, wake up now and I'll do my demo. Don't feel bad about walking up and looking over my shoulder. When you're plein air painting, that happens all the time, so it doesn't bother me. Oh, and this is a plein air painting, and this is as close to a plein air painting as you can get without being outside. So.
Where's the scene you're painting? What is the image of?
This is just across from the Valles Caldera, up near Los Alamos.
What size is your paper?
What size? It's 6 inches by 12 inches.
How do you do your own framing?
I have the frames made and then I assemble them, but making your own frames is a fool's errand for me.
I don't mean make them, I mean...
So, if you can see this, you'll see that it's very rough. And so I've evolved a system that allows me to do both smooth and rough things, because the paper is so rough that it does a lot of work for me. So I have these little things made out of foam, and what it is it's archival foam core, and I peel off one side, and then I use the exposed side to smooth things out. Notice the difference. Okay, so smooth, flat color on a rough surface. That's my solution for when I want smooth things instead of rough things.
Yeah.
And here are my reference photos. Again, if you want to come up and look at them. I was going to pass them around, but everybody was kind of doing everything, including me. And so you'll just have to go. I'm using two pictures. One, this is for the top, and then this is for the bottom part of it. And this was the original exposure. And in Photoshop, I made it lighter here. And one thing, if you ever talk to me about using reference photos, you'll get my little 30 to 45 second lecture about bracketing your exposures. In this digital age, it's so easy to do, and bracketing, that just means taking your camera or your iPhone and taking the picture that it wants to take, and then taking a second picture to force it to underexpose so you can see highlights like clouds, and then taking a third picture to face it to overexpose so you can see shadows. And so in that way, you have all of the information you need to make a painting. And one thing that amuses me, I mean, I can't say it's right or wrong, but I see people who are doing landscapes and the clouds are white, and I know it's a reference photo because if you just take a reference photo with a camera or an iPhone and you point at the landscape, all the detail in the clouds is going to disappear. So if you like a scene, take 3 pictures of it. Again, if you want, I'll show you how to do it on an iPhone. On a camera, it's pretty simple because you can usually force it to overexpose and underexpose. But every time you take a reference photo, that's what I do. It's at least 3 pictures. In this case, this is an old photograph. And so I didn't have it bracketed, so in Photoshop, I opened it up quite a bit. So, any questions?
Do you usually work from top to bottom?
Always, because the dust falls down, and if you have it tilted this way, all kinds of little pollution things will happen.
Are you using a variety of soft pastels, hard pastels right now?
Mostly I use soft pastels. I use hard pastels for underpainting, but mainly I use Great American, what's the name of the guy in Littleton, Colorado? Terry Ludwig. And there's one other group of pastels I use. And I use them because I don't use Sennelier and all the European pastels, soft pastels, because they have a really kind of generic color scheme. And Terry Ludwig, Great American, they have all these little odd colors in between, and they're really good for Southwest, plus they're really good for the way I like to paint. So I do use a lot of soft pastels, but I don't use things like Sennelier or whatever because their palettes are not as good for me as Terry Ludwig or Great American. And I like Great American because he traded me a painting for every pastel he has.
How often do you paint?
How often? I go on binges. There's a lot of things going on right now, so I'll start a painting, and that's what I'll do for about, depending on the painting, anywhere from 2 to 3 days up to a week or 10 days, depending on how much I get interrupted. So I'll have like a week or two during a month where I'm taking care of trying to stay alive, and then the other 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever, I'm painting off and on. And I do a lot of work in oils and acrylics as well as pastel too.
Which is your favorite?
I love them all. Making images is the whole thing. So.
Well, while everyone's quiet, I'm going to give you a story about experience I had with Paul. A couple of years ago, he put on a workshop up in Bernalillo, and I had only been doing pastels 3 or 4 months at that point, and so I felt like a real rookie with everyone else in the room. So I sat in the back row, and Paul was having us do shapes, different shapes, circles, triangles, rectangles, whatever it was, and it was late in the morning, and it was just about lunchtime, and Paul said, well, now just take some of these shapes and just come up with something and just draw it. I'd only been doing pastels 3 or 4 months. I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Just come up with an idea. So I did. I came up with an idea in my mind I had never done before, and the idea was that of a spaceship, sort of using triangles, and then the Earth below, or whatever planet, and the sun in the distance, using the shapes. So Paul's going around, looking at everybody's drawing, and because I can see everybody's drawings, I'm going, oh my word, this is crazy. And Paul finally gets back to me and stands right beside me, and I'm making my spaceship with the triangles and everything, and Paul doesn't say anything. And I'm just standing there sweating, thinking, this guy with all these accolades, here I am a rookie. He's looking at my painting, not saying anything. Finally he says, and I'll never forget this will stick with me the rest of my life. He said, now that's cool. So what a mark. That encouraged me so much. Thank you.
I know I promised to pay you, but I didn't win that.
So Paul, I notice you've got that sky like way darker than the reference image. Is there a reason?
I never, ever, I'm obsessed with the north sky in winter. It's always really dark blue, and I never, ever do a landscape, or it's rare that when I do a landscape and there's blue sky, I'm always going to make the sky darker than normal because it makes the mountains stick out more. It just pops everything else. And I don't care whether the sky's light or pale or whatever. I'll almost always, if it's a clear sky and I want a clear sky, it's going to be much, much darker than the actual sky color. So, cheap trick number 1.
That's your artist prerogative. That's right.
That's one thing you have to remember when you're painting, especially when you're plein air painting and you're trying to put everything on the canvas that's out there and everything. You're the artist. You get to decide what you're going to put down. So if you can get that into your brain, then it makes painting so much easier. Too often we think we have to replicate what we see, and I'm guilty of that as well. But like that plein air painting, I took a lot of liberty with color, and it took about half the time it normally would have if I was obsessing over what was actually there. So.
When you use that, the bone core thing, are you actually pushing the pastel into the truth or no? The surface?
In some instances I am. One of the cool things about the surface that I make for myself is that it's very pressure sensitive. if I lightly go across, I just get these little points, and if I push real hard, I get a solid color. So everything in between, if it's a sanded surface or prepared or whatever, you don't have that option. You put your pastel down, and you can control the pressure to it to some extent, but with the surface that I use, I feel like I have just a ton of room to use pressure. Plus, I have this little cheap trick tool that solves some other problems as well.
Do you ever use any other paper that you don't make?
I used to use Kitty Wallace, and then it disappeared. Art Spectrum, I think, makes something similar to it now. And I have done that on plein air things, but basically, I like my own surface, and I'm so used to it that I just don't use any other surface most of the time.
How big is your studio?
700 square feet plus a bunch of storage
And a cat.
and a cat. So here's a good case in point. There's some trees right back in here, right up at the top. And I am just not going to put any detail in this area at all, just showing some of the edge of the rocks and some trees back there, because it needs to be there as a transition thing, but it's not pictorially very useful to me, so I'm going to give it as little attention as possible, but still have it be integral to the picture and useful for me.
Is that a happy little tree you're putting in?
It's a whole group of happy little trees.
So Paul, it looks like you're picking and choosing your colors. Do you ever pre-plan your palette of pastels?
When I'm doing a demo, yes. And to be totally honest, I did a pre-demo painting so that I would have, because I know I'm going to be talking a lot, so I wanted to not have to worry about figuring things out. So I did as much figuring out as I could. And then I took the pastels that I used. When you see somebody doing a demo, whether it's pastels or oil or anything, half the time they're going mix, 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 or is this the right color?
Yeah.
So I want to minimize that. I want to spend my time painting and talking. And so I do a lot of preparatory work. And back before Photoshop, I used to do a lot more sketching than I do now, but Photoshop solves a lot of problems in terms of values and moving things around and changing stuff or putting in different things. And so it's kind of a good news, bad news things. Before Photoshop, I drew a lot more. After Photoshop, I was a lot more productive. So, pick your poison and go with it.
Could you stand away for just a bit? So it looks like you're using turquoise?
I'm not.
Well, whatever that bright green is.
It's actually green. It's been grayed down quite a bit.
Okay, where would that compute for your photo? Can you point to either one of them where it might translate?
I don't like any of these greens here,
Uh-huh.
so this is what I want to do.
Okay.
See, it's one of the advantages of making your own painting is you get to be your own little dictators. And most people wear gloves or something else or lotion when they do pastels, and I just wash my hands a lot. At some point, I feel like my hands are all have too much pastel in them, so I'll just clean them off and just start over again. And I like that because it gives me a break to walk away from the painting.
What do you use to clean them?
These are just handy wipes or whatever you call them.
Baby wipes.
Baby wipes.
HOA. Were you Thank you.
Yeah. Right.
Possibly.
And then in situations like this where everything's really roughed in, then I can take my little smoothing cheap trick and basically pick the areas that I want to be smooth and leave the areas that I want to have the black showing through or to be rough, and I don't mess with it too much.
Paul, do you ever offer workshop lessons?
I do. I haven't done any in quite a while. There was a period about 10 or 15 years ago where I felt like I was just, everybody in the world had taken one of my workshops at that point, and I thought, well, maybe I'm a little bit overexposed, and so I haven't been doing that very much lately.
Or you're teaching at IAPS.
I do have a one-day class at IAPS, which the good news, bad news is it's full. So, of course, that changes. I mean, my class last IAPS was full until the last moment, and then several people bailed for other workshops. And then at the very, very last moment, it was filled again. So
Waiting lists are wonderful.
yeah. And sometimes when I'm painting with pastels, I'm moving it around a lot. So the flat area puts down general color and it's not too textured on top of others. And one other thing too is with my surface, like for instance, some of the prepared papers, you can layer 4, 5, or 6 layers. And with my surface, I really am limited to about 3, possibly 4 layers of pastel. And that's the way I want it because it forces me to be very thoughtful when I'm putting down color. I can't just go. So I really think about the color I put down, because I know if I go more than, say, 3 layers, I have problems because it doesn't quite, it's rough, but it doesn't have the same kind of tooth that some of the prepared papers have, like Art Spectrum or something. So I try to limit all my colors to 2 layers, possibly 3 layers.
Well, I'm surprised you're using that neon green, Irish Spring color. Are you going to cover it up a little bit? No, I don't mean to
I have a very good answer for you.
In New Mexico, that's that color.
I have a very good answer for you. Maybe. As I occasionally tell my wife, I'm not done yet.
Every painting has the ugly stage too, but
Thanks a lot. To be honest, part of a spouse's job is to keep you humble.
we critique each other's work.
Yeah, that's what I
I do get, and I don't do anything like what he does, so, because I do book arts.
Your work is different.
Yeah, in abstract, because I can't draw, he can draw. So I do stuff that doesn't require drawing skills. Just color and splash color and composition and,
No, it's always good to have a critique or whatever.
yeah.
No, excuse me, what do you mean by book art?
She makes books. I make books. There's artist books, they call them, or one-of-a-kind books. Albuquerque has a book art guild called Libros, Libros, which is Spanish for book. And in Santa Fe, where we live in the Santa Fe area, we have the Santa Fe Book Arts Group, BAG. And they meet every second Saturday of the month at 1 o'clock. They have a Zoom meeting. They'll be Zooming today at 1, but I'll be at Masterworks today, this afternoon. But yeah, I make, I have 5 miniature books in the Masterworks, the miniature display unit, if you haven't been there. So that's usually where you'd see my work in Masterworks, is in the little miniature display cabinet with books. They're fun, they're cute. And I made a sketchbook. I'm going to be working in my sketchbook today as the props of the painting. Still live. Excuse me? How big are they?
Well, my miniature books in Masterworks are 1 inch by 1.5 inches, maybe 2. No, about 2 inches this year. 1.5 by 2, I think. But I've made books up to about that size. I don't make real big ones, but we collaborated on a book, a big accordion. Accordion books are books that the paper folds. Yeah, it was about, I think, 16 feet long when it was opened up. It was a book for an exhibit at the Art History Museum or History Museum in Santa Fe. On Shakespeare, it was commemorating the 400th anniversary of his death in 2016. And so we collaborated on a book based on Midsummer Night's Dream, and Paul did the concept and all the work, all the artwork on all the pages, and I did the backgrounds, and I assembled the book, and I built the box that it came in, made the structure, the storage structure.
So these are one of a kind.
I'm sorry?
One of a kind.
Yeah, it was a one of a kind. Yeah, all the books I do are pretty much one of a kind.
Were the books in the little cabinet at the?
Yeah, they're all one of a kind too, in the display. Yeah, right. Yeah, there's 5 of them in there. So.
It was a really cool book too, I
It
gotta
was,
say.
our masterworks, or I mean our
Shakespeare book.
Yeah, Shakespeare book. Yeah, it was Midsummer Night's Dream. I should bring that next time. No, we don't sell those. I don't want to sell them. They're too precious. I don't want anything. They're just my fun. I don't want it to be a job. It's just what I do for fun. Were your drawings, Paul, I can't remember, were they all done in pastels, or did you do, I can't remember what media you worked in, because that book was like 10 years ago.
They
So
were all digital.
it was all digital files.
Yes.
It's like a painting is done.
Yeah.
Just about, you know, looks like it's pretty much finished.
I used pastels and watercolor for the cover though. I do use some pastels that I spray fixers on. You know, you have to collaborate with books.
Yeah.
I'm sitting at quite a bit of distance back over here, but Paul, from what I'm seeing here at this distance, my eyes are attracted right to the middle. Is that sort of your idea of putting this together?
Yeah, the whole thing is, I'm kind of, this is a little bit, and I do this a lot because I'm just that kind of person, but this isn't what you would call a formal composition, because a formal composition wants your eye to rest in one place, and you know that's what everybody thinks is a great composition. And me being weird, I like your eye to go all the way through it into the back. So I always make pathways that take you all the way to the back. And so while this draws a lot of attention and maybe competes with this a little bit, I just like that depth that it gives to it. And
Well, the
so,
path is pointing to the mountain.
yes.
Yeah.
So everything is designed to get you all the way through the painting as opposed to having you stop here or something like that.
Stand away from it. Just
Sure.
Yeah.
A little bit more. There you go.
And again, if you want to wander up and look over my shoulder, that doesn't bother me.
Is probably the most demanding medium or something. Would be interested in another. I've made it too long. Right. It was really interesting. Well, that's good.
Paul, are you using gray tone right now? Is that
There's a lot of, one thing I do a lot is instead of using grays, I use violets. And most of the time, unless you're really, really obsessive like I am, you don't notice the difference between gray and a pale, pale lavender, but it really adds life to the painting. It's one of these tertiary things that after you've been beating your head against the wall for 30 years that you figure out.
So what was it in your hand just a minute ago was violet?
It's a very, very pale lavender violet.
Thank you.
So get it in the spirit of light. There we go. Questions?
Is that on board or illustration board?
It's chip. Here's a cheap trick for you, those of you who don't want to cut masonite. It's 4-ply chipboard, and the glue I used was PVA, and then it's a very smooth watercolor paper. And I coated the water, got a roller and coated the watercolor paper, put some weights on it, and it was ready the next day for me to put gesso and put my ground on. And so it's a very papery kind of surface. If I'm doing a really large watercolor, like larger than 16 by 20, I almost always use masonite. The other thing that I'll do if I'm doing a large pastel is it's some stuff called door skin. It's like paneling, but it's real thin, and you can get the people at the lumber store like Lowe's to cut it for you, or you can buy it in 24 by 48 or 24 by 24 inch sizes, and then you can cut it with a mat knife. And what I do with that is I'll cut it to size and then get some paper and some PVA glue and again put weight on it. And for larger things, if you try to do this with something like 16 by 20, you'll have buckling problems. But with that larger stuff, it's easier to deal with. You can also use 8-ply chipboard, and that eliminates some of the buckling too if you're using large painting, or making a large painting rather.
How big do you paint?
How big do I what?
Paint. What size?
My largest watercolor, my largest pastel has been 32 by 40. I've done several of those.
Where do you get the pumice?
There is a store called Woodworker's Supply. It's at the intersection of Alameda and I-25. So if you're going north on I-25, exit on Alameda, go across, and you go up a little hill, and it's right on the right. It's in the northeastern corner of that intersection.
East Frontage Road, sort of. It's off
Yeah,
the Frontage Road.
yeah.
It's off the Frontage, yeah.
And it's called Woodworker's Supply, and they'll sell you. I use the coarsest pumice I can get, which I think is 200 grit. I can't tell the difference between 200 grit and 400 grit, so I just go with the largest I can. And you get it's a can about 6 inches tall, and it's about half to 2/3 full of pumice, and it works out really well. If you don't want to bother with using gesso and pumice and a binder like acrylic, you can buy Art Spectrum. They make little jars of ground, and Margie Lucena used to use this all the time, and she was just awesome. But she did it, and she used it really, really rough like I do. And what I did and what I told Margie to do when she was first starting to use it was take the actual mixture and add a little bit of maybe 25% more pumice to it because it increases the tooth. And then if I needed it to be darker, I would just take some really dark acrylic, black or deep blue, indigo blue, and mix it into it, and that would darken it for me. So if you don't want to mix your own pastels, but you want to try doing something like this, Art Spectrum makes a ground that you can just paint on, and it'll have plenty of tooth. I would also advise you, I don't think Margie, I think she just painted it right on, and she had massive amounts of texture. When I use it, I thin it down again to the consistency of milk and put several layers on. It just makes things feel more papery. And if you use masonite or some other surface like masonite, and you just mix pastel and gesso together, it's like drawing on concrete, which is not pleasant at all. So.
Can you hold up the painting in front? Yeah, there we go. One more shot. We'll get the money shot. Okay, just down a little bit under your chin. There. No, higher. 1, 2, 3, smile. There we go. Thank you.
Okay.
And turn toward the light. So
Yeah, let's do another shot. Your name's right.
One on leg out.
put your right foot
All right, there we go. 1, 2, 3. Okay.
I feel so used. So there it is.
There you go. Perfect.
Sure. Pardon?
You still have 20 minutes. What are you going to do?
Another painting?
Make another painting.
Lucky for me, I didn't bring another panel.
Can you sing a song?
I can, but I don't want to pay for the medical
You
part.
can.
Thank you. Good job. Thank you.